This is the biggest children abduction operation since the Second World War. This is actually a civilization erasure, when you actually try to destroy the future of your neighboring country, because by brainwashing, by actually abducting children, by kind of getting them out of the country, you're actually depleting, if you wish. Those kids will be, if they will go from the filtration camps to the military camps, they will have to come back to the front. So they will be fighting their own, maybe their even own uncles or their own cousins on the front. And
welcome back to Problematic Women, where it's not wrong to be right. I am Virginia Allen, and it is my distinct privilege that today we have in studio with us the European Union Ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Neliupšienė. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for taking the time to come into studio. This is just great to have you here for a conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be on podcast, not so often.
Well, as you were talking about before we started recording, the whole podcast format is so fun because we get to have both kind of, it's almost like the new version of radio in the past 15 years, that we get to have these kind of more long form dialogues, but on camera. And so we just really appreciate you taking the time to drive across Washington, D.C. from Embassy Row to be with us in studio today. And certainly a lot to talk about when we talk about the state of play of European affairs, the United States, and, what the president has said regarding Europe. We're going to get to all of that here in a second. But I want to start with a little bit of your background. You're originally from Lithuania, and you've been living in the U.S. for about 2 years?
A bit more than 2 years.
A bit more than 2 years. Okay, so you have dedicated much of your career to serving the people of Lithuania, and now in your role as ambassador to the U.S. from the European Union, serving all Europeans. But I would love to hear a little bit of a compare and contrast. What have you noticed specifically about Washington, D.C. that has surprised you? How is it vastly different from Lithuania? And maybe what are some surprising similarities?
Well, I have to say that I haven't worked in U.S. before coming here in January 2024, but I spent almost a year in Omaha, Nebraska, in the Creighton University.
Oh, okay.
Doing my PhD there. I was finalizing my PhD thesis there with a bunch of American and international students and exploring Midwest America back in 2008. It was
that was a different time.
Yeah, it was different times. But I have to say that this probably, because you would, as a diplomat, you would come and go to U.S., New York, UN Assembly. You would come with your work to D.C. But to come and spend, quite a number of months somewhere outside, this was most fascinating. I have to say, for me, it was like probably I can live here.
I can do this.
Yes, and because I think that there is a similarity. I'm coming from Northern Europe. Lithuania is in the northeast, if you wish. We're very straightforward people. We don't like to hide or to beat around the bush. We want there is no time. The daylight is very short, so either you do things or you're not. So I think this is what kind of brings our people together, and this is kind of makes my life pretty not easy, but at least less complicated, because this is one of the similarities. I see. If you think about work related, they're always I think that we have to rely on what Secretary Rubio just said in Munich. We belong together, value-based. Our history is our economy is immensely integrated. And even if when we sometimes kind of differ how we see this exactly particular topic, I think that the point, like worldview, how we perceive the world is much more similar than we turn to acknowledge.
Yeah, which I think is good to recognize. And of course, our roots as Americans are very European. But I want to, we're going to have a conversation here in a second about the 4-year anniversary of the war between Russia and Ukraine, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It's wild. We've just reached that 4-year mark. We're going to have a very important conversation in a moment about the missing Ukrainian children and the First Lady's work on that. But let's take another moment, because I love what you say about European bluntness. I think that's critical, and it's something that is refreshing, honestly, in the world of politics with lots of beating around the bush. You need that. So, Ambassador, I want to ask you your thoughts on a statement that I know you have heard before, but the White House in November, they put out a national security strategy. It's a 33-page document. And within that document, there's a pretty striking paragraph. And I'm going to read it. I know you read it. We're going to put it up on the screen. But it says, it's at first speaking about economic issues and then sort of moves on to more so cultural within Europe. But it says, this economic decline is eclipsed by the real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure. The larger issues facing Europe include activities of the European Union and other transnational bodies that undermine political liberty and sovereignty, migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, censorship of free speech and suppression of political opposition, cratering birth rates, and loss of national identities and self-confidence. Okay, loss of national identities, self-confidence, civilizational erasure. Okay, so big comments here. And I know, reading this as an American, I'm kind of like, I kind of know how Americans react and think about these claims. But take us inside the mind of Europeans when they hear this kind of language coming out from the White House. What are you all thinking?
I think that one of the things what maybe is a slight difference between Europeans and Americans, that actually we are quite self-critical, or we are more self-critical. So we recognize that, our structures, our laws, our rules, our, things we are doing, or how we're doing, maybe not ideal. Or maybe not perfect, and we can take criticism for its value, and if we do believe that, maybe that's a good point, we actually are ready to act. We had long conversations even before national security strategy came out, for example, on the defense spending. I'm coming from Lithuania, as you mentioned, from the Baltic countries, which is eastern flank of the EU and NATO border. And actually, I could not agree more.
Really?
Yes, defense spending is too low. We have to do something. What we do when we are asked very nicely, well, it's not always happens. When we asked a bit stronger, then we think, and if its stronger language is actually comes together with the full-fledged Russian war in Ukraine, we think it's like we should have done that, and we move on. And the decision to spend more on defense actually came in NATO and then in the European Union, top it up with extra money. Okay, we'll take it. The migration issue. Well, we do see the challenges here in the U.S., and we do understand that you see the worry that what is happening in the United States. Well, I have to say, for the first time when I was posted as a Lithuanian ambassador in Brussels back in 2015, that was the peak of the migration crisis in Europe. We saw 100,000 people crossing the borders. The problem for us that the crossing the border is in the sea. It's not that you just go through the mountains. You are in the sea, and if the ship starts sink, what
dangerous.
You do?
Yeah.
You have to take those people. You have to save lives, because this is these are people with families, with children. Sometimes only children. So this actually created a huge pressure within the societies that we have to find the right way how to solve it. It took for us years to negotiate, because we are 27 countries. Some are like mine is in the very north, with the very specific problems when the government of Belarus is instrumentalizing and weaponizing migration, pushing migrants from Russia and Belarus towards our borders. We actually literally had to build a physical border to stop that. On the other side, in Southern Europe, you have seas.
Yeah.
So you cannot build a border in the sea. So how you do? So, you have different policies. We actually just a couple of weeks ago, we finalized what we call Migration Act and Migration Pact, which foresees strengthening border protection, ensuring digital border protection. We just enacted that all the 27 member countries actually have to have their digital document whenever you are crossing the document. In 3 months, we checked 24 million people. Can you imagine? We are actually now have a huge database and all the red flags when we need.
Yeah,
but
critical, really. Critical.
I think that when we see the problem, we solve. It sometimes takes for us a bit more time, because we are 27 different countries with a very different interests.
Yeah.
And I think that's that. But look, I think that we have to, when we speak about civilization or, cultural issues, we have to be very clear what exactly we have in mind. I think that you would not find any other jurisdiction, any other continent in Europe than the European Union countries and some countries around European Union in Europe who would be more loyal to freedom of speech, to human rights, to tolerance as such. What is happening right now? There are a lot of challenges. AI, new technologies. Those changes came in with the internet. Mm-hmm. But the civilization, every time, be it migration challenge, be it wars before that, be it new technologies over the long history of times, civilization can endure not when it's on freeze, on hold, sure, but when actually it adapts to the new realities. So I think that there are lots of conversations to be happen. Yeah. But look, you travel. A lot of your listeners probably travel to Europe. They see Eiffel Tower, they see Roman Colosseum. They probably go somewhere, freeze themselves to Sweden or Iceland,
great
or to try some more challenging routes in Ireland, But this is where you see those Europeans, lively cities. You go to the bar and you would see the same sport bar. Maybe they would play soccer there on the screens instead of American football. But you go to the jazz concert, you go to the pop concert. You would see the same things which you see here. So I think that this actually is a proof that we come from the same civilization, and it's most important is to spend less time on the headlines and to focus on real stuff.
Yeah, well, and there's so much there, because you're right. I think it's been interesting to see. Obviously, there's been conversations for years, going back to what you said about spending and defense. And that was an issue that was talked about for a very long time. Trump talked about for years and was incredibly pleased to see that NATO countries have agreed to spend 5% of their GDP on defense by 2035. Massive. And it's been fascinating then to see, okay, there's maybe still a comment here or there from the president related to spending and wanting to see that increase. But the conversation for him has shifted a little bit more towards that cultural side and towards those issues of immigration. And so then kind of pulling back and looking at that issue specifically on that immigration side, you go back to, I think, in 2015, the immigrant population in Europe, I think, was around 75 million. Today, I think it's around 87 million out of a population of 745 million people, roughly.
450 people.
Yeah.
400 million.
400 million, yeah. So lots of people. So would you, in your assessment, just with the challenge of assimilation, because we know, many of these individuals that are migrating from parts of the world really war-torn, but that have rich cultural roots, whether from Africa or the Middle East, and that assimilation aspect has just been a challenge. Can Europe maintain its culture and its rich cultural history with large groups of individuals coming in who seem to struggle to assimilate fully into the culture?
Well, I'm a major in social science, but part of the social science is history. Over the hundreds centuries of history, we saw the movements through European continent back and forth during the Dark Middle Ages and later. You can see, I can tell from my own country's history. We saw the wars, France moving, a lot of Russian population sent, for example, from what was former Soviet Union. Sometimes Central Asian population, was displaced intentionally, even to change. So the movement was voluntary and involuntary of the people. You probably would not find any other nation in which would be more attached to their identity, like Lithuanians, for example. Yes. So we are very proud people. If you think, but what I'm trying to say, it's actually the assimilation or we call integration policies. Actually, it's very much the national competence. So different countries actually attach different interests and different laws, rules how to go about it. Well, in smaller countries, traditionally would be a little bit more strict because, we are a small country. We are a country of 3 million like Lithuania. So we will make sure that everyone who comes in, if he claims for the permit to live longer than, the short period of time, like 3 to 4 years, longer than that, the language is the must. There were some exceptions here and there. For example, when the war in Ukraine started, those rules were kind of accepted from being rules because you have to employ hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian women who came in, and it's better to employ them. Of course. Even without language knowledge, because you don't need the social social pay.
Absolutely, as Americans, we very much agree with that.
But that's how it works. In other countries, they go around it differently. They make sure that the different policies on social housing, on language, on getting documents. But I think that there is one thing which I think all Europeans agree. And with Americans, it's about illegal migration. We all need workforce. We all need to have people who would be not only good citizens, but as well, they're the people who contribute to the economy, where they benefit from their being free, from being able to work and to do, and even to their freedom to choose their religion, to choose their the way how they think. So they have to contribute to the society, and there are different rules how to do. How do we make sure that there are no illegal immigration? This is really not so complicated. There is there are crossing points, there are illegal crossing points, there are returns. Actually, the number of the returns is very much on the rise in Europe, which sometimes actually are forced returns. That we have an agreement with the third countries to take their nationals back, unless we see their conflict or the security issues or huge discrimination or violation of their rights back home. But I think that there's plenty of room to work on. We would be glad to see better policies. But the beauty of Europe that one of our kind of a mottos of the European Union is actually unity in diversity. And I think that this diversity gives us the power we want.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that diversity, let's talk a little bit just about, I think that European perspective on the war specifically between Russia and Ukraine. Like mentioned, the spending, that GDP, 5% of GDP by 2035, so many European Union countries, NATO countries are fast tracking towards that. I do have to call out Spain. They need to do better. But for the most part, it's been really encouraging to see this, I think, recognition in light of really tragedy and just recognition of, okay, with Russia on our doorstep, we have a map we'll put up on the screen, but, Lithuania is a stone's throw away from Russia. And of course, many European Union countries border Russia. This is in your backyard. This is something that you all are constantly faced with. And yet here we are, Ambassador, it's been 4 years. I mean, even just that statement, 4 years since the war began. Does that shock you that we are 4 years in from Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine?
It's not about shock. It's actually heartbreaking. Yeah. I have to say that it took 4 years for all of us to realize that we are in the war of atrocities, of not only the war itself, but all the war crimes which are around it, which all the provocations and hybrid attacks, which actually goes much further beyond Ukrainian borders. But I think that we can look at this from the other angle and think that, when this war back in February 2024 of 2022 started, the one sentence you would hear, like, it will be, they will just walk to Kiev. The Russians will just walk to Kiev, and then we will have to think where they will go next. And here we are, because of the resilience and the bravery of Ukrainian people, with definitely help of Europeans, help of Americans, and help of all the global coalition. Here we are. So instead of, being the special operation of a few days or few weeks, we are at the 4-year mark. And of course, a great number of lives have been lost. Yeah. And nobody will actually return those people to life and their families. And I think that's what actually it's really sometimes you wake up at night, it's like how it's possible in the European continent where we actually said never again after the Second World War. We built our structures, systems, laws, regulations, rules of engagement. We built NATO, European integration. We actually traded with Russia quite extensively, believing that, that this is the good thing and bigger economic integration would help us. Yeah. Well, but apparently, the idea of Mr. Putin is totally different. He's willing to sacrifice the huge amounts of life of his people. He's building to ruin he's turned to ruin his country's economy for worse, because all the economy is now the war economy. In their inflation is double digits. All the reserves are depleted. But this is the ideology,
Well, and I would argue that some of the greatest victims of this war have been the children, and this is an issue that I think was underreported for a very, very long time. Still, honestly, is underreported that there are Ukrainian children that have literally been kidnapped by Russia, taken back into Russia. This is an issue that the First Lady has shed some light on. She's put pressure on. She's written Putin about. But just to help us understand this whole situation a little bit, are Russian forces, like, literally when they enter a community within Ukraine, when they enter a town, a village, are they literally looking for children? Are they going into homes and pulling kids out of their beds? Are they targeting orphanages? Where are these kids? Where are they finding these children that are then being taken back into Russia?
The short answer is all the above.
Okay.
I think that there are different stories and multiple stories told. I think that I have to start from the first sentence. This is the biggest children abduction operation, systematic children abduction operation since the Second World War, or World War II.
Yeah.
I can tell you the stories from that war, because they were not so much different from what they are doing right now. They just called it differently. That during the Second World War, they were removing children from front. So when the front was moving, the children were just the problem was that they were removing those children from the occupied countries to Siberia. The children who were removed at that particular moment were never brought back home. So it's not really very different from what we are seeing right now. Russians will shell the villages, communities, urban populated areas. People will hide. How they would come and occupy territory, and how long you can sit in your basement, as long as you have food. Once you have to go out to search for the food, you would not leave your child behind because you are not sure if you will be able to come back. So you go out with your family to search for the food, or to buy for the food if it's possible. And then you would be captured on the way. And I'm really very glad there was actually even the president mentioned the story of the child like this, like Sasha Rachuk, who was kidnapped back already less than 4 years ago, but in the very beginning of the war, when he was with his mom. He was 11 at that moment, with his mom for the search of the food in Mariupol, and they were both kidnapped and taken to Russia. Then the child was separated from his mom. He managed on the way, where other kids were on the bus, managed to get the phone from the stranger, called his grandma and plead her to come, kind of trying to indicate where he was on the way.
Wow.
Well, I think that we have to be proud of those women and grandmothers or grandparents who actually managed to get those kids, and she not wavered. She followed her grandson. She managed to get him out, and there are other stories. Those kids would be, for example, there would be a shelling. It's not even proper occupation, but the army is moving. The mother is killed in front of you because of the bombing in front of your eyes. You are 10 or 12, and they would just leave the mother's body there, and they take the children. They would bomb civilian infrastructure, and of course, their children houses or foster houses, and they would go there and take even the kids who are not necessarily, they can be handicapped, so they cannot even understand that they have to call someone for the help. They would remove, sometimes they would, if the children are already older, they would move them to what they call filtration camps. Which actually they will start to train them as the little soldiers, in a way to go through the brainwashing. If if they get to the hospital, even the doctors are supposed to tell them, this is you don't need Ukraine, you don't need your mother, you will have another Russian mother. And they would be put sometimes, if not in the filtration camp, they would be kept to some new families. So it's a huge effort.
So this is currently happening?
It's happening. It's continued to happen. Like right now, we have around Ukrainians report, and there is international community and international organizations, including UNICEF, who are following. It's more than 20,000 children who have been abducted from Ukraine. And you are right saying, all the initiatives matters. And I think that there is a huge appreciation of the First Lady. What she's doing, she just announced a couple of weeks ago as well that a third group of Ukrainian children has been returned. But in general, even the messaging, even telling and reminding that returning Ukrainian children is part of the peace negotiation. Yeah. It's a really essential part, because this, we spoke about civilization erasure. This is actually a civilization erasure, when you actually try to destroy the future of your neighboring country, because by brainwashing, by actually abducting children, by kind of getting them out of the country, you're actually depleting, if you wish.
Is that why Russia is doing this?
Sure, because those kids will be, if they will go from the filtration camps to the military camps, they will have to come back to the front. So they will be fighting their own, maybe their even own uncles or their own cousins on the front. And the less people you have, the less, the children you have, the less future.
From the children that have been rescued, what have we heard from them about what they experienced in Russia? Have many stories come out? Oh,
there are like lots of stories written. We always have to give a bit of the time and space, because it's a huge trauma.
Of course.
For that. Some stories are really. Because there are a lot of organizations and a lot of good people working behind that. And some stories is almost like, some kind of movies where the grandmother will pretend not being grandmother, will try to cross the border if she managed to, or grandfather, they manage to actually to find out the location of the children. Or, there's certain organizations who actually go in the almost all like a secret service to go and re-kidnap, if you wish, rescue those kids from wherever they are. And when those kids come back, actually those who are coming back, they actually are the best information sources in order to locate the others, because if they are kidnapped together from one community, so they know that, okay, my neighbor's friend was there, my neighbor's cousin was there, so kind of to locate as many kids as possible. But this is one thing where kids were kidnapped from the territories, and then, Ukrainians would regain the territories and they will know the data. The problem, which is, it's even bigger problem, the Russians occupy certain territories. They keep their forces in there. So the Ukrainians are counting around 1.6 million of children who are still in the occupied territories, and we not necessarily know. Maybe some of them remain with their parents, maybe they remain in their foster homes, but we don't have information. So can you as a mother of the 13-year-old, if someone just war in itself is already horrible. Yeah. But if you kind of find that yourself in the situation where you are separated from your child and you don't know, and the only thing that you can hope is actually that he survives.
Yeah,
it's really, there is no words for this kind of the tragedy.
And how can a parent function when something like that.
Yes.
No words for it. Do we know where these children are living in Russia? Are they being put in group homes, or families taking care of them?
So there are different. Apparently, there are different ways how Russians deal with that. As I mentioned, they could be taken. They could be taken to the so-called filtration camps. It's, I don't know, like a camp, a territory where they get first training for the being soldiers, kind of preparing for becoming a soldiers. If the kids are too young, they can be actually put to some Russian families with no possibility to have contact with the outer world, because it's for the reason not to be returned. In from the context, what we know, we managed to get is actually that the children can be moved from one location to other location, so to make sure that there is no follow up, or there's no possibility for rescue those kids from there. But if you talk with the people who work on the rescue operations and rescue missions in Russia, it's there are a lot of Russian people who actually understand that it's not their kids.
Yeah.
That there's somewhere the mom or dad or grandparents who actually long, who where those kids really belong. So there are stories where actually Russian people help as well.
Powerful.
So I think that's important to note as well, and that's important to send a signal that those kind of people should be rewarded and acknowledged.
Restores a little hope in humanity.
Yes, well, we have to have a hope. I think that's the basis of all our Christians.
Absolutely. Well, Ambassador Neliupšienė, I do want to ask, I think that's a good place to close, is do you have hope that these children can be returned?
I have to. Because this is it's impossible to give to put your head around it, and there are a lot of organizations and a lot of people in the United States and in Europe and in other parts of the world, including, for example, Vatican, actually working on this to make sure that we follow, that we get all the information possible, that we put maximum pressure, the same as First Lady is doing on the Russian leadership, so we can actually get those children back. But the longer it takes, the more complicated, because if you've been abducted when you're 4 or 5, so now we have a 4th year of war. 1 more year, and those kids, they can change. They would never see their parents. And I think it's important really to mobilize ourselves and not to think, it's okay, well, that's a loss. Yeah. Let's move on. There is no way that any parent and any actually rational person can move on with that, because this is just not the way how we treat our children, our families, our communities.
Yeah. Well, Ambassador, we certainly thank you for your work on this issue. This is one that, of course, touches a part of all of our hearts in a powerful way, as it should, because those images of a child literally being taken from their home, and it's almost hard to pause and think on it too long, because it becomes so real of just how evil really this is, and just the atrocities, of course, of war are terrible, but really unconscionable to think of kids being taken from their home. So thank you for your work that you're doing on it, and thank you for taking the time to join us here today to have this critical discussion. And Ambassador, we look forward to continuing to follow your work on this, and I know the President is keeping you very busy. And as you're representing all of the European Union here in the United States, there's no shortage. So we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come over today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I have to say, I have no complaint of being bored in the United States.
Well, that's good. Well, EU Ambassador to the U.S., Ambassador Neliupšienė, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.